Hi, my name's Alice and I'm Research and Documentation Assistant for Archaeology at Hull and East Riding Museum. And today we're going to have a look at medieval buildings and giving an overview of how people built with wood in the medieval period. So you're probably aware that throughout the ages people have used wood as a building material. So in prehistory they had roundhouses. In Roman period, their cities were built with timber-framed buildings, and then in the Saxon period, they're using a combination of possibly like similar to the roundhouses, but also plank buildings as well. So then we get into the medieval period. We know that there were stone buildings, but these tended to be quite expensive, so they tend to be used by rich people, so that's why we see stone-built castles. But we also have rich institutions like churches too. So using stone as a permanent, expensive building material to show I'm wealthy and also I'm going to be here for ages. But what were the rest of the houses built out of? Well, they were built out of wood. And they tended to use a construction called timber-framed building. So what they do is they would select oak trees with nice straight trunks to create a frame that then they would use cheaper materials to be able to infill the gaps in the wall. The other option was choosing a piece of wood, a trunk, that had a slight curve to create what was known as a crook frame building, where you're using the natural curve of the wood to create that roof shape at the top of the building. So, with timber frames, they were selecting trees, as I said, with a nice straight trunk. It needed to be thick enough to be able to support the weight of any floors above, as well as other things like snow falling on the roof. So you had to make sure you had thick upright posts and then a combination of load-bearing horizontal beams. So these would be, you would go to your woodland, you would select your tree, and then you would cut the pieces in off-site, off your building site, and prefabricate the frame, numbering the pieces so that you could put them together where you wanted to build your building. They would use a selection of joints appropriate for the part of the frame that they were building. The most common was called a mortise and tenon joint, which is where you have the piece of wood, you dig a hole, and then you put your other piece of wood into that hole and fix it in place with a wooden joint, a wooden peg. So, once you've got your frame, you need to build up the wall. This would be done with wattle and daub, so a series of thin twigs going up vertically with wattle, so other thin twigs woven in between those uprights. And then a material called daub, which is a combination of clay, maybe sand, and dung, straw, would be packed onto that to create an insulating layer. Another option would be thin slate laths of wood that would be placed up, or oak, kind of thin planks, thin sheets put in and stacked up. Or you might have used brick, though brick was a very poor option. It's a poor insulator, it retains moisture, which can do horrible things to the wood, as well as it being very heavy, so it would have put a lot more load on the frame. So once you've got your infill, you then would have applied a lime wash, which would have been applied, it would have been an off-white colour, or depending on the area you lived, it could have been quite bright, all in earthy tones. But we do know that in the Lothians up in Scotland, it was more of an orange colour, whereas down in Suffolk, it would have been a pinky colour. So this would have been applied as an alkaline solution, which would have reduced the chances of pests coming in and boring into your frame, as well as offering a bit of weatherproofing too. So that's an overview of medieval buildings. Hopefully you'll come back and enjoy some of the other videos we've got on here for you.